It's time for Just Be You After Dark with me, your host, Mahogany Reynolds. On this episode of Just Be You After Dark with Mahogany Reynolds, I'm excited to sit down and have a wonderful, candid conversation with someone whom I greatly admire, Constance Cooper. She is a classically trained and professional composer, a highly sought-after model who has ripped the runway in New York Fashion Week several times. She is a seasoned and established actress of film, television, and theater. She is also a dancer, and she is outstanding. She's filled with wisdom, she's filled with knowledge, and she's filled with inspiration. She is a true demonstration of excellence at 80. Sit back and relax and enjoy this episode of Just Be You in the Dark with me, your host, Mahogany Reynolds, for a candid and inspiring conversation with my special guest, a living legend, Constance Cooper. What's up, beautiful people? This is your queen, Mahogany Reynolds, Miss Just Be You. Welcome to another inspiring, entertaining, and empowering episode of Just Be You After Dark with me, your host, Mahogany Reynolds. I am so excited to meet with you today to empower you, to encourage you, to stimulate you, to inspire and motivate you to believe in the possibilities of who you are. Today, I have a very special guest. In fact, every time I have a guest, they're special. But there's something really special about this guest. Her name, Constance Cooper. Now, I met Constance by way of a modeling workshop that I conducted several years ago, and it was a chance encounter. We're going to talk about that during our interview, so I'm not going to give it away. But I do want to tell you that Constance Cooper is an amazingly talented woman. She is multifaceted. She is a classically trained musician. She is an actress. She is a model. She is outstandingly interesting. Her journey will inspire you and encourage you. And the theme for this episode of Just Be You After Dark is, it's not too late. It is not too late. This is something that I want you to think about as you consider the goals and dreams that you have for yourself, thinking that it's too late for you, that maybe you're too old, maybe you're not good enough, maybe you don't have enough connections, whatever reasons that have come into your mind to lead you to think that you don't have enough time. I want to be someone who encourages you to realize that dreams do not have expiration dates. That's something that I learned from someone that I greatly admire and respect, LL Cool J, Mr. James Todd Smith himself. This is something that I really embrace and that I believe in. Do you have to sometimes pivot and make some changes and modifications to your dream? Absolutely. But do they have expiration dates? That's only up to you. So welcome to this episode of Just Be You After Dark with me, your host, Mahogany Reynolds. And we're going to have a wonderful time meeting with and having a conversation with the lovely and talented Constance Cooper, who is joining us all the way from New York City. Constance Cooper, welcome to the Just Be You After Dark Lounge.
Hello, dear Mahogany. How nice it is to see you. After how much time?
You know what, Constance, I think it's been probably seven, maybe longer, maybe like 8 or 9 years. It's been a very long time.
That's right.
But we've been in constant communication with one another over those years. And I think it's just wonderful, especially since we are both in the performing arts. And sometimes you know that it's hard to build lasting, meaningful friendships and relationships within the construct of the performing arts because it's such a competitive field. But you and I have maintained our connection and our friendship, and I think it's just wonderful.
I think so too. I think it was wonderful how we met, and I remember things from that workshop that got me ahead faster than the months previous because of the way you worked and because of the way in which you taught it, which was nonstop and demanding and charming and completely professional. That is completely focused. And you know what impressed me? It was not only the way you treated me, but that was a general workshop. That wasn't just for women, senior women like myself, learning modeling. You had little children in that workshop. Do you remember?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, my
So
youngest student in that workshop, she was 5 years old.
they behaved perfectly.
They were darling.
I couldn't figure out how you did it, but they were amazing. I mean, to deal with tiny children in a modeling workshop, it
Yeah.
was really, it was really a lesson.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I'll
Yeah,
be
I
sure
learned
to
a great deal
include
from
some.
that.
I'm going to include some pictures from that workshop.
Really?
Um,
Oh,
so that
terrific.
people can see what I'm referring to. I thank you. I truly appreciate that feedback. You know, in my career, I've had a few number of people who were mentors to me as I embarked on a career as a model, starting off in Detroit and then, spreading out across the state of Michigan, doing some modeling in Chicago, and finally feeling like I had spread my wings as far as I could in the Midwest. And then also embarking on modeling opportunities in Atlanta, being a signature model for a lot of beauty brands that are marketed towards women of color. So that was always a wonderful experience. And but then even that wasn't enough. After a while, I said, if I'm going to do this and I'm going to rise higher, I need to go to the most difficult, the most competitive, the most challenging, the most demanding place on the planet, New York City.
Yes. And you had, well, you had two things. You had one easy thing and one very, very difficult thing. Uh, and they're in a way the same thing, and that is that you were very young. And that means that the competition was just, as you say, it was extraordinarily heavy.
Mhm.
You were coming in your best possible shape, professionally and psychologically,
Mhm.
and you had vigor. You had the vigor of that age. On the other hand, you had to compete with women who were, one might say, in your cohort, who also were young and strong
Right.
and ambitious. I began to model very late in my life. I never thought of it before. It was sometime in my 60s. And a woman posted who was a clothing designer. And she had designed clothing that she wanted to see on women of all different sizes, shapes, ages, and so on. And whether, fat, thin, tall, small, old, young. And she took me as a model. It was my first modeling job. And I got to her studio. It was a blazing hot July day,
Hmm.
and it was very uncomfortable. And she gave me the clothes to put on, and I put them on, and they were cool and comfortable on this nasty hot day. And I thought, there's something in this.
Hmm.
And I had never thought about clothing before, except, I don't know, you wore a winter coat in the winter and you wore summer clothes in the summer, and that was about as far as I'd gotten. But at that time, I realized what the skill was that went into that,
Hmm.
and I began to be, my mind open to it.
Hmm. That's awesome.
I think that was before I met you. I think I had met you after I had some professional exposure, but I was scrambling because I hadn't been trained. It
Mm.
was just what they told me on the job.
Very true, very true. And you know, in New York, it's interesting when you're ingenue, whether it's an actress or model, it's almost as if they expect you to know exactly what you need to be doing when you get
Yeah,
there.
yeah,
Whether it's an audition or when you actually book work, they don't have time. They don't have time. They have a tight schedule and a tight deadline. So your training is something that you need to do on your own. And I think that that's something that anyone who is aspiring to become a model, they need to think and realize that they need to train and they need to study on their own so that when they come into an audition, they already know the foundation fundamentals. And then they also need to be flexible because the way you may walk the runway, you may think that's my signature walk and I'm not changing it. Well, young lady or young man, you have to be flexible because one designer may like that walk and another one may want you to walk a little differently. So you have to be flexible. I was just so excited about that workshop and meeting you, and I felt so honored. Um,
that,
because I said, you know, this is an opportunity for me to give back, to teach the things that I have learned and developed along the way. And I believe in studying. I mean, I have a closet full of books on the modeling industry just on its own. So I'm a big fan of studying the greats. I'm a big fan of studying technique. I don't subscribe to, you know, oh, just copy what you see on the internet or copy someone else and try to, you know, be a replica of that. I believe in creating your own signature in everything that you do and being flexible enough. And I thought that you were an outstanding student, and you were just so delightful. And I really enjoyed working with you on
I'm
that
so glad you
workshop.
liked it. It was wonderful, and you see, it was part of. It was like being partly an actress that day because I was learning to assume, you know, the way you do with a role, you assume values that in a way you don't have. You're becoming a different person. And I had to become a different person in learning to model
Yeah.
because I had never behaved that way before. And, you know, when I think it over, if I had considered being a model, I would have had to continue dance classes, yoga classes, stretch, you know, weight lift, all these things that I decided I really wasn't crazy about. What I really was crazy about was jogging. Cycling, that is using an exercycle, came like a distant second. But what I really liked to do was go out and run around a little bit.
Mm,
But that wouldn't have shaped my body the way I needed if I had taken up modeling at an earlier age.
mm, mm,
In many ways, I was very lucky to have come upon modeling in my 60s and into my 70s because it gave me scope to
mm.
be an original sort of character. Because that's another thing, Mahogany, I want to stress. A lot of modeling is what is fashionable that day. And the fashion changes overnight. And either you say to yourself, well, you know, that was my time. My look is, you know, can't be adjusted. I've got to say goodbye and take up something else. Or you have to chase that. You've got to chase that fad to
Mm,
the next one and the next one.
mm.
I think it's not easy.
No, I would imagine that to be rather exhausting. You
Yeah,
know, as you said, because the industry changes so quickly. I think you know, what could be beneficial is for you to diversify yourself and be
yeah,
versatile and be able to navigate between all of the different forms of modeling. Because most people, when they think of modeling, one of the first things they think of is the runway, and that is just one aspect of modeling, but there's hand modeling where you hold a product and you demonstrate, or you have your nails and they're going to show, you know, there's I mean, it's just so many up different things you can do. Constance, don't you think it's just delightful how the industry has broadened, and now that you can become a model and be any shape, size, demographic, age, ethnicity? This is so long overdue. What do you think?
Yes. Not only that, but again, I see myself in that mirror. I couldn't have been a model as a young woman. I was a big girl. I was heavier than I am now, and it would not have been acceptable. And I didn't look like a model. But now, fitting in with an old age cohort, there's a certain look that is now fashionable,
Mm.
has to do with vigor and excitement about life, that sort of thing. In a way, it's prejudicial because it does not accept the total old woman. After all, old women have melancholy, they have grief,
Mm.
they have tragedy, they have illness, and those are all things that are eliminated from the modeling experience.
Mm.
I don't hold with that. I don't like it, but I have to accept it when I go on a modeling job. So my last, I think it was my last one was a modeling job for a drug company that was looking for senior women who with chronic illness, and they wanted to know how you handled your chronic illness. Now I'm a type 1 diabetic, so I've been handling this since I was 20 or something, and they wanted to interview me about it. I was not, I must say, I was as frank as I thought I could be, but I was not asked all the questions that I should have been asked, to which I
Mm.
could have given very stark answers.
Yeah.
So the picture of the woman with the chronic illness is this optimistic,
Yeah.
forward-looking creature
Yes.
who doesn't reflect on illness. And we do reflect on illness. We
Yeah.
do think about it. It weighs.
Mm.
Maybe it gives us a certain gravitas. I don't know.
Mm.
Um, I certainly think about it. When you're diabetic, you have to think about it every day. There's no exception to that rule.
Wow. I admire your um, dedication to being authentic in everything that you do. I am well versed in your trajectory and your journey, and I can't wait for you to share that with the audience. But we are going to have a wonderful conversation, Constance. Constance, I'm enjoying our conversation thoroughly. And I want you to share with the viewers of Just Be You After Dark. Tell us your journey. Where did it all start for you in the arts? As a young child, as a teenager, tell us, why did you get into the arts, and how did it help mold and shape and create the wonderful woman that we see today?
You're very kind to express it that way. I want to make clear that there are negatives involved in the positive. And I didn't, I began very young as a child. I was 4 when I started to study the piano. That doesn't mean I was exceptionally gifted. I was talented, I could sing and play, but it was just something I did in all those years until I got into my teen years and I discovered opera. And I began to be crazy about opera, and I thought I would try to become an opera singer. Well, my voice is not suited to opera. And even though I studied and worked, that was not going to happen. But then, after I graduated from college, it was my first job, full-time job out of college. I became a radio announcer for a classical music program on a nonprofit radio station. And at the time, when I began there, they had classical music on all day. So for 2 years, I announced classical music and listened to it, was part of that scene. And in my third year, I took over and got my own program, cut it much shorter to 3 hours because of all the preparation it took. So it was, although it was a shorter program, it was a much longer job to organize, to choose, to select, and so on, in other words, to curate. At the end of that time, I said to myself, if I go on listening to other people's performances, I am never going to develop individually.
Mm.
And this was a feeling I had, but it was borne out to me just a few days ago. I was watching a Miles Davis interview, and Miles Davis said he didn't recruit the young guys from people who did a lot of listening to records. He said if they listened to a lot of records, that's what the music they played. He wanted them to play what was from them. And then he added, you have to be very selfish to be an original artist. He said you cannot be listening to other people's music. And I think that what he meant was not only that you have to think for yourself, but that you can't be telling people all the time that you're listening to their records. You have to say, well, I didn't have time. I couldn't listen in this last month because I was busy with my own development.
Mm.
Now, this sounds very logical, but to say that to somebody who's maybe a far better developed artist than you are, it has a certain air of arrogance and selfishness to it. And you have to live with yourself that way. That you need to be thinking of yourself as a completely original person. And it's not always going to be simpatico. It's not always going to be polite. You try to be polite, but it just isn't. If you try to think of a way to say to a talented and successful artist, I didn't listen to your recordings. I mean, can you imagine?
Mm-hmm.
It is important. It's very important. So after that, I began to practice more, or try to struggle to do what I wanted. And it was a total struggle because my voice didn't get approbation from people. I was playing the piano, but I was freelancing just any work I could get. I was music directing shows. I was accompanying singers. I was accompanying students at their voice lessons, just dance classes, anything I could do to make a living. And then somebody rescued me to a certain extent, hired me as a piano and voice teacher at Long Island University. And then I had a steady job. And I kept that job until I realized I was burning out. And I gave it up and I studied computer programming and I became a computer programmer trainee. And for the first time in my life, I had a salary that you could call a salary. It didn't last. I wasn't gifted at it. I was a hardworking student without talent in computer programming. So I took that for 3 or 4 years. Then I was fired from a job and I never went back. Mm. And that was the right thing. I wasn't good at it. It just gave me a little breathing space to make some money, sock it away, and go on with my music work. Mahogany, I am going to pause at this moment because there's something on my mind, and here's what it is. It has to do with money.
Okay.
We are in a situation in New York now, and in most of the major cities of the world. They are expensive beyond the dreams of young people. particularly arts people.
Mm.
And that means that what was once possible for me, which is to live on freelance work, have my own little one-room apartment in Greenwich Village, get enough, dress well enough to have good clothes for evening wear. That is not possible for a young person now who does not make terrific sacrifices.
Mm.
Here are now I don't know quite how people manage without living by themselves for a lengthy period of time when they're young, because that's part of your development is
Yes.
isolation, solitude, quiet, avoidance of social commitments to a certain extent, maybe long in between times between relationships. You need to grow up. You need to be alone. And that is not available to most young people growing up in the arts now in New York. They're 4 or 5 to an apartment. When they get into a close love relationship, they move in together. They have never been alone.
Mm.
All I can say is it is worth doing anything you can to make it possible for you to have your space away from other people. And here's what it entails. You can't go to restaurants. You cannot afford restaurants. You have to go home, make a sandwich, make a salad, and you have to learn to make things attractive so that you can invite your friends over. So that when somebody says, "Oh, let's go to such and such a restaurant," you have to say honestly, "I cannot afford it.
Right.
Every penny must go into my piggy bank.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to my place and I'll cook something for you and we'll
Right.
sit around together and converse
Mm.
about important things in peace and quiet." You cannot afford restaurants. You cannot afford expensive clothes. You've got to do it yourself somehow. Borrow, imitate, sew.
Mm.
You can't afford expensive makeup. You're going to have to learn the dodges. You're going to have to go to the dollar stores. You can't eat expensive food. You can't buy expensive groceries. And for heaven's sake, don't buy water. This is New York City. The water is clean. Get it out of the tap
Mm.
and carry your water bottle with you. Don't buy
Wow.
water at a buck a throw,
Mm.
But you have to economize beyond what your grandmother taught you in order for you to be able, in the crunch, when there's a crunch, to say, well, this is what I saved for. I saved for an emergency. I have some money, and I can get by. Anyway, I did this. I was, after all, the child of Depression parents who
Mm.
wouldn't spend a penny if they didn't
Wow.
have to. And my lesson in life was the opposite. I had to learn when I got my computer programming salary to spend money appropriately. All I knew in life was saving.
Mm.
Don't buy that. Don't do that. I had to learn appropriate behavior. And that was very difficult for me. And it continues to be an issue for me. Right now, things are fine. I'm an old woman. I've done a lot of work. My husband has worked until, proper retirement age. And we can afford, organic tomatoes or something. But I still think, oh my goodness, oh, I shouldn't do that. Oh, what? It's a habit.
That's interesting.
But one habit saved me from going into debt, and it's a habit. It's a habit worth, that helped make me able to prolong my life in the arts when there was just no money to be had.
This is amazing. What you're talking about, Constance, is financial literacy, which is something that young people need to be taught.
That's right.
As soon as you start giving your child allowance, they need to be taught that. They need to be taught how to create a budget for
That's good.
themselves. My son recently asked me for assistance with a homework assignment that was teaching him about a zero-based budget versus a personal desire budget versus an income based budget and all these different kinds of budgets that you can do. And I thought that was wonderful that he wanted me to help him with that. Because it isn't something that we definitely talk about in my family to help him understand, the old saying, money doesn't grow on trees. And just helping him understand the value of the dollar and ways that he can diversify when he earns money as a musician. He's a professional djembe drummer. He's studying to be a professional percussionist, and he wants to get into the arts industry as well. So I'm training him and preparing him. But he's been watching me teach him the show business side ever since he was 5. He's been watching me, learning from me about the business side of show business because I felt like it was more important for him to understand those foundations first. Anybody could train and learn and develop a skill as an artist, but if you walk into this industry and you're blind and ignorant and unaware about the financial aspect of it, you
Mm.
can land a great modeling job and get $50,000. You can land a great acting job and make $100,000 or $5,000 or $500. But if you don't know how to manage your money, you will do like you said, Constance. Oh, let's turn up, as they say. I don't know
Yeah.
if you still say that. I don't know if that phrase is old or not, but I'm gonna go with it. Let's turn up. Let's go out to eat. Let's pop some bottles. I'm treating. I just landed this great acting job, or I'm on the
Yeah.
cover of such and such a magazine, or I'm going to be modeling in New York Fashion Week and I'm going to get paid. So I'm getting ready to go to Saks and I'm about to treat myself. I work hard, I
Yeah.
deserve it. I'm
You
about to order
do?
me
You do?
something. I'm about to go to Tiffany's and pick me out something. I've always wanted something from there, someone could say. And then
Yeah.
the next thing you know, that 5,000 turns into $50. And then it's like, okay, so what do you do when 2020 rolls around? There is no work. There is no fashion week. Everything is literally lights, camera, no action, right? Everything is dark and shut down. What do you do if you were not wise to save money, like you said, in a piggy bank or bank account or cash out? Save your money. If you don't trust the bank, that's fine. Put your money in a cash app, PayPal, Venmo, Zelle. There's so many different kind of ways that you can put money aside. If you don't want to do that, do old fashioned like my mama used to do in Detroit. Put that money in a sock and hide it somewhere in the house, not under the mattress. That's the first place they look. So
That's
she was
right.
creative. She put it someplace that nobody would ever think that it was. But learning how to save your money. And I would like to add to that, pay your bills. Please.
Oh, that
Please
goes
pay
for
your
that.
bills.
Yeah.
Don't, who cares about credit? I don't want to buy a house
Yeah.
in
That
credit.
that
I can
goes
just rent.
absolutely with yeah. It
You
goes.
don't want to destroy your credit because you never know when it might come in handy. Say, for example, you started off as an artist, right? Whether it's modeling, acting, vocalist, musician, and at some point in life, you want to make a pivot, you want to make a change, and you say, you know what? I enjoy performing, but now I want to direct. I want to produce. You need money to do that. You need money to do that. You may need to take out a small business loan, or you might need to apply for a grant. Some grants want you to submit your credit report so they can see, do you know how to even handle money in the first place? And we're going to give you a grant for $30,000 and your credit score is 200. Hey, what are you doing? So you just have to think about all of the business aspects of show business, and not focus so much on the lights and the glamour and the fame and the success and the beauty of it all. You have
Yeah.
to think about the business part of it. And a lot of times young artists, and maybe even artists who are more mature in age, they're just not given this information early on. They sit
No.
down, they get a contract, and I've heard so many stories of artists who are super successful, famous artists who talk about their journey and the fact that they did not know how to read a contract. They were so excited that they were getting a deal that they just signed their name And it took years for them to realize they signed away their publishing. They don't own their masters. It's like recording artists or models who didn't realize that they were signing away their rights for someone to use their likeness or image indefinitely. So you have to have common sense, street smarts, book smarts, so that you can do this thing right and protect yourself. How did you learn how to protect yourself in the arts? Who taught you to protect yourself, or was it a lot of trial and error
Oh,
constantly?
with me, I was all alone, and it was a matter of making an income. In the way I made a living, freelance to freelance, first of all, there's no question of a contract, and second of all, if you got a long-term job, that was a very unusual thing. Eventually, I went into church work. I had been a choir singer, and I played organ, learning the pedaling, which is the most difficult part of the organ. I never really learned well, but I got by. And so I could be a music director in a church, and that was a contract job. On the other hand, I myself was not always in a position to keep the job. I had a lovely job when I was living in Washington, D.C. I loved the people, I loved the minister. They gave me carte blanche to do the music I wanted. And in the middle of all that, I got accepted to graduate school in New Jersey. So I couldn't come back on Sundays I had to leave this job that I was so fond of and it paid nicely. So I myself was in a situation in which I had to bring the contract to an end at the end of the year instead of continuing on. So I myself needed a structure in which I had enough money or enough back or whatever to say no.
Mm.
So it's not just that you want the money to come in, it's that you want a cushion.
Yeah.
Building a cushion at the age of 18 is a very remote idea.
Hey, I'm telling, and we're talking about making wise choices with money, but if I'm being honest, when I was 18, 19, 20, etc., I wasn't always thinking about saving. I think for me though, it really hit home when I went away to college and I got accepted to college and I was able to go to college and I realized, okay, wait a minute, I'm gonna have to work my way through college. You know, I had scholarships that I had earned for my writing as a journalist, and I had different blessings in that way to help pay for tuition. But there were other expenditures that just were not covered. And so I had to work. I had to work my way through college. I've had all kinds of jobs. One of my favorite jobs was working at the library. I used to love that. I love reading. I love books. So that was a great job that I had. But I worked from freshman year all the way to senior year nonstop. Even in the summer, I worked. In the summer, I mostly did modeling work and I earned money through modeling work. But even then, you have to understand in the summer, okay, you earn modeling work, but you can't spend it all during the course of the summer. I need to go back to college in September with some of this money because I'm going to need it to cover what I don't have for books or things of that nature. And so when you're young, yes, it's true. You're not necessarily thinking, okay, I need to save money. You're kind of like living in the moment. I'm getting ready to have some fun. I'm young. I'm not worried about all of this. What are they talking about? But when it comes down to the arts, you have to be so smart with your money
Yeah.
because your opportunities will, like you said, you have to have that cushion because sometimes there could be periods of time when you're just not working. And it doesn't mean that you're not talented, that you're not worthy, that you're not good enough. It's just that opportunities in the arts are not constant. They're
No,
not
they're not
constant.
constant, they're not frequent, they don't filter down to the lowest, to a broad level,
Mm-hmm.
and they are completely dependent on your physical health. And
Mm.
that means, a couple of years ago, I did a movie with that was cast. The casting director had chosen. She was the director herself. Actually, she didn't. She took the position also of casting director, and she cast in a very wide net. One of the people she cast was a dancer from the Ailey Company.
Wow.
And she was, young, right out of Juilliard. She had been an apprentice for a year with Ailey, and she had been taken into the company.
Mm.
Just a wonderful, elegant dancer, lovely person. Into her second year, third year, she was injured.
Mm.
She's back now. Everything's fine, but it wasn't fine for a year.
Mm.
She must have thought over and over during that year that her dream couldn't be
Mm.
because it was a knee injury. It had to have surgery,
Mm.
and then she had to wait.
Mm.
Dancers look at that every day of their lives. They don't. We don't live. Musicians don't live like that. In which in a day it's gone. But
Mm.
dancers do.
Mm.
It's alarming that they have to live that way. They're much more on the edge than people like me because we have a much more protected environment.
Mm.
We sit, we play, where it's
Yeah.
protected. It's indoors for the most
Yeah.
part.
Mm.
Um, there's no physical risk
Mm-hmm.
um, more than for other people who must travel frequently on their jobs, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I would like to add to that that the particular field of music that I've ended up in, which is free improvisation, you don't earn a living at that.
Mm.
And I have never, in all the time that I have been doing this, which is a number of years now, perhaps 12 years, I have never met anyone who made a living at it.
Mm.
So they're doing whatever they can.
Mm.
They're in jazz, or they're in pop, or they're in um, classical music, or they teach, or they do tech, but they don't do the one thing that is for them the highest and best of what they do, because there's an occasional $100 in it,
Wow.
you know. But it's a field that's burgeoning. It's spreading all over the world. It's tremendously exciting to have the internet because, for example, I now have a weekly partnership with a dancer and artist in the south of Japan,
Mm.
a small city in the south of Japan. We don't speak each other's language hardly at all, so I can't ask her how she found out about improvising. But it's wonderful. She dances, and also she puts a large roll of paper up on the wall or on the floor and paints on it during the music.
That's
So
beautiful.
that it's a duo, not only of two people, but it's an ensemble of different forms of art. And
Mhm.
she's in Japan, and I'm in here, and we can meet every week.
I think that's
It's so
wonderful.
wonderful that you've got to forget about money in a case like that and make your money some other way.
That's true. That's true. I think I agree with you. If you're interested in the arts, I think it's important for you to understand what your intentions are. I've been having a lot of
Yes,
conversations with people about their intentions.
that's right.
Um,
That's right.
but my organization, Just Be Performing Arts, I really want to make sure that whomever I'm working with, that they understand we want to know what your intentions are. If your intentions are to get into this industry specifically so that you can become famous and make a lot of money, then you need to really understand that that's going to take a lot of sacrifice on your part. Some stuff you're going to end up sacrificing that you can't get back. Some stuff is going to be a high sacrifice is going to
That's right.
cost you something.
Yeah.
Um, but if your intention is to be in the arts so that you could express your creativity, so that you could possibly motivate and inspire, encourage, and lift someone, or lift the culture, or lift society, or if there's a specific demographic that you're trying to target, whether it's youth or adults or people who've been abused or people who experience trauma, or if whatever your goal is, who you're trying to target, if that's your reasoning, then the money will come. The money will come. If your intentions are genuine, the money will come. If you're being obedient to whatever that is in your spirit is telling you, I want to pursue being a dancer. I want to pursue modeling. I want to pursue acting. And I'm going to pursue this because it's a natural talent that I have, or it's a talent that I'm going to train, to cultivate, to strengthen. And I'm not doing this because I want to suddenly become famous and rich, because fame and money fades. It comes and it goes. But if your intentions are genuine, if you really are doing this from a sincere place, I believe that you can have a strong impact, a lasting legacy. And I think that it will sustain you when the money's not there, because the money is not the motivator. When the money is the motivator, then the money goes away. Then what do you have? Who are you outside of the fame? When the fame fades, do you know who you are? And that's something that I teach in all of the workshops. And I think I mentioned this and talked about this in our modeling workshop. You know, understanding who you are when you walk into the room, being clear and confident about that, and knowing what your reasonings are and your why. What is your why? Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to be a classical musician? Why do you want to be a dancer or an artist? You know, you think about somebody like, I was recently teaching a women's history workshop for a group of young people. And one of the women in history we talked about was Frida, the very talented Mexican
Yes.
painter.
Yes, of
She was in a
course.
cast when she was 18 for
Yes.
months, right?
Mhm.
So she used her why. I want to be a painter. I want to be an artist because it makes me feel good. It brings me joy. It's a way for me to express myself artistically and creatively. Was anybody paying her to paint? No. But eventually, as she developed and strengthened and grew, she became very well known and very well respected. And I think it's important for artists of all ages, of all genres, to ask yourself, what is my why? Why am I doing this? And what do I do when the money is not there, or the recognition is not there, or the fame is not there? So I have a question for you, Constance.
Yes.
Is there someone or something that you have always been able to go to keep you motivated and encouraged and inspired in your journey as an artist?
It's not a person, it's not necessarily a living person, but you know, there are an awful lot of composers before me who lived in extreme difficulties.
Mm.
I've been bailed out of my difficulties a number of times in my life. Enough, more than many composers who were far greater than I am. And I live a life of comfort. That in itself is a signal to me that I ought to be very busy all day long, since it's so comfortable here. And I feel the same way, by the way, about this current situation, in which I've had arthritis badly enough for a couple of years, really to be hindered from walking. I sit down to work. I sit down to compose and to play, even to sing, because I still sing when I improvise. I can go on doing what I need to do with absolutely no change, even though I'm in this physically challenged situation. My whole trip this summer is predicated on the fact of my being able to perform without my physical problems getting in my way. In that way, when you think it over, I'm really lucky. And I can continue. There's no reason not to continue looking for beauty, because it's all beauty. It's beauty that I look for every time I play or anything. It's beauty. It's not just the world of music. I love the world of music, but if I didn't conceive of it as beauty, perhaps I wouldn't be quite so industrious.
That's wonderful. So you're inspired and motivated and encouraged by the beauty of it all.
Yeah, and by the fact that others did it, that living people. I mean, musicians don't necessarily talk about it; they just do it. Yeah, and also I think I should also point out that although there are many musicians who are highly articulate, there are many who are not, because music is their first language, not words, and they don't talk about things. They don't talk about inspiration or beauty or energy, or they don't talk about anything. But they're there.
Yeah.
They get up in the morning, they're tired, they're playing anyway. It's cold weather, they don't care, they're playing. Something went wrong with the instrument, they overcome it. And you see that enough times, and you realize that you don't have to talk. You just have to look at those people right in the eye and take away from them what they're giving you.
Constance, we're having a great conversation about some of the ups and downs of being in the arts industry, about being motivated to pursue whatever it is you feel is your passion, no matter what you think society says is acceptable or unacceptable in terms of your age, your background, your upbringing, your resources. Share with us some of the adversity that you've had to overcome, some of the villains that you've had to overcome, and not necessarily villains don't necessarily always have to be a particular person. Sometimes adversity, adversaries, villains, they could be situations, they could be mindsets. So share with us how you were able to overcome them, because I think that your story can definitely be a testament of triumph and determination.
I'm not sure. I certainly can tell you that the flip side of discovering myself in old age, as an age advanced, I found more and more things that were right down my alley. What that means is that I didn't find them when I was younger. I didn't find them. My teachers hadn't a clue, and I couldn't get it across to an audience. So nothing came easily. Nothing came right. I was making a sort of living. I was getting by, but nothing. There was nothing in which I could relax and be expansive and totally myself the way I can when I improvise. Improvising came to me very, very late. And now, and I can't say it was through anyone's fault. It simply wasn't there. And then one day it was there. And I worked on it. It's true, I worked on it. But on the other hand, it wasn't there before. It hadn't been born yet. So yes, there was plenty of adversity, but it wasn't nasty people. There are nasty people out there. We all know them. They're all the same. They get in your way. They hurt your feelings. and you have to ignore a little piece of you that gets scar tissue on it
Mm.
in order for you to get by. I'm not even, I can't even reference that. Um, and there were the people who said, well, you're not right. You shouldn't be in this, this field. In a way, they were right. Um, I loved practicing, even though practicing wasn't leading me to be a star. I simply loved it. I went on doing it in defiance of what people told me by their behavior. Because I didn't have a large audience. I didn't have an agent. I didn't have a concert career. I just had jobs here and there.
Mm.
And as far as modeling was concerned, modeling happened to me. I didn't generate it. I followed leads when it began to happen. I suppose I kept myself in shape and um, tried to get my publicity stuff in line and all my papers, all the stuff that you need. I tried to get that in order according to what I read about the industry. I didn't try to defy anything or get in anybody's face. I tried to conform and grow, get things to grow that way. Some of it came my way. An old lady I knew, much older than I, told me that you got one job out of 10, and by and large that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe 2 out of 10. I think 1 out of 10 is correct. So you couldn't. You could just all you could do was roll on. You,
Mm.
you, you couldn't think about it. I do know actresses who get very rattled by being turned down. And it's true, there's a sting to it that's unpleasant. But when you're rejected, um, it's, it's very often because you're not good enough. And you have to say to yourself, I wasn't good enough. Somebody was better. Or the other way around, I got a part once. This was in an Agatha Christie dramatization. And they made 3 of us audition in the same room together for the same part. So we
Mm.
were all reading, I mean, like up against each other for this part. There was a woman there um, who did the part in a very odd way. It was eccentric and it was funny. She was funny. And I said to myself, this woman is going to get this part. And she's better than, she's better than I am. I got the part. I got the part because the director was a man of middling talent. And he preferred me to the more talented actress.
Mm.
And I tell you this because that's not just one thing happening to one person. That happens every day of the week.
Mm.
Somebody better than you is there, or somebody better than you gets the part. One or the other. There's injustice in every, in every encounter.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who doesn't understand you, doesn't know that you can do the part, or puts you where you don't belong, or and so on. To be exactly where you belong, that's a rarity.
Wow.
Maybe that's something I um, truly like to pass on. That sensation of I'm right where I was born to be. I don't know. That happened to me after I was 75.
But the last thing that you just said was profound.
Oh, about being right in the right place.
That
Yeah.
Constance, that is profound for you to say that you are right in the right place, wherever you are in your journey, whether it's in the arts or whether you're trying to pursue a career to be a lawyer or whatever it is you're pursuing in life. right where you are is where you need to be. And
It,
if
you
you
know,
learn how to just, as
you,
I say on my show, just be you. If
you
you
know,
learn how to
Irene,
embrace that, it
it
will
may be
save you
true.
so much angst,
It may be
wouldn't it?
true, but it doesn't feel good all the time. And
No,
that's
it
something
doesn't.
I've got. You might be in the right place because learning and struggling are the appropriate things at that moment in your life, but that doesn't mean you're going to feel good. And I think that I would like to emphasize this. There is a lot around me all the time about feeling good,
Mm,
having fun, feeling good, feeling the moment. It. I don't find that my life can be run like that. I don't know. I can't know intimately about other people, but I can tell you my life has not been like that. And the moments of having to learn are uncomfortable moments. You have to learn. Sometimes you have to learn because you're ashamed of how ignorant you are, and that's not a good feeling.
mm,
That's not sweet.
mm.
It's a feeling that impels you on, but
Yeah,
that doesn't mean it's pleasant.
yeah, yeah.
And
I would think that many of artists who reach a certain echelon in their career would be honest to say that it was those moments of being, as you said, talked about rejection, which is something that you have to build a certain kind of muscle to deal
yeah,
with,
yeah,
especially in New
exactly.
York City. You can forget it. Um,
Yeah,
you're going to go to New York, LA, Atlanta, Chicago, Kansas, Utah, wherever you are, and you're going to go out and you're going to try to pursue this thing, whether it's music, comedy, acting, modeling, painting, or whatever your creative aspiration is, and you're going to go after things, and you're not going to get everything. You're going to get turned down.
that's right.
Sometimes it's because there's someone who's better qualified
Yeah,
for the role or for
yeah,
the position or for the job. Sometimes it's just not the right time for you. Sometimes it's not the right situation. But as long as you're able to walk away from that rejection, understanding that they're not rejecting you, the person, it's just the timing or the fit is not the right connection, or it's not the right role, or someone was better suited that they were looking for. I think that's hard,
oh,
especially
it's not
young.
only hard,
You think,
it's
oh,
it's
they're
it's
rejecting me and I'm
irrational.
not good enough.
Yeah,
And they try to morph themselves into being who they think they should be in order to fit in. And we talked about this before. You mentioned the
yeah,
fashion industry and how if someone right now, somewhere in the world, is creating a new fashion trend that's going to come out, right? So,
yeah.
what are you going to do? You're going to every day, you're going to change the way you look, you're going to change your style, your aesthetic so that you can fit in. You better learn how to just be you. You better learn how to stand in who you are and be flexible enough to be able to do certain genres of fashion or certain forms of acting, but also be clear about who you are so that you don't get lost in this place called the entertainment industry because it's so easy to get lost.
It's easy to get lost, and I'm reminded as we talk about people being rejected. Did you ever see that? There's a photograph of Meryl Streep on the New York subway. She's standing, she's holding onto a pole, and she's smiling. She looks fabulous. It's a very young photograph. And apparently, that photograph was taken after she had gone to a movie audition and she'd been rejected, and they told her that she was too ugly to be a movie actress.
Wow. Mm. Wow.
I mean, the fact that anybody would ever say such a thing is
Yes,
that
you would think like,
yeah,
what were they talking about?
that's
And the
right.
fact that she
Exactly,
that she
exactly.
she she heard that, and then what did she do instead? You
Yeah,
have two choices. You either adopt what someone is saying about you, or you reject it.
yeah,
And those are there is no in the middle. You have to make a decision Am I going to believe what people say I am, or am I going to believe who I say I am? And I think that that also leads to situations where you're dealing with a lot of the isms. Our industry is filled
Yes,
with it:
yes.
racism, sexism, ageism. I mean, it's
Mhm.
just all over the place.
Yeah,
Genderism.
that's right.
So there's a lot of that going around. And so you have to be very solid in who you are as an individual, because the rejection is going to be coupled with a lot of those isms as well. And I applaud you because you are inspiring. You're saying that at 75, you started to really hone in and develop this awareness and this confidence about who you are. And I think that's beautiful because unfortunately there's so many people who live their entire life and they never really know who they are, and they didn't have the drive to go after the thing that really brings them joy and happiness because they were trying to live a life for someone else.
But you see, I was lucky because it happened to me. I didn't say I'm going to sit down and learn to improvise. As a matter of fact, it was I was in graduate school and I had a buddy in my class who thought everybody in the whole wide world should improvise. And the way he went about it was he would announce a concert with his group and he'd put your name on the poster without telling you. So you would say, "What did you put my name on the program? I'm not going to do this. I don't improvise." He would say, "Okay, okay, I'll take your name off." The next time your name appeared on the poster, that was the way he went about things because he thought that was the way it should be. That was my first exposure. I was totally not there. I was just not there. And over a matter of years, I got more and more exposed to it in different ways, dealing with musicians who improvised, composing pieces that had parts that could be improvised, meeting improvisers, then beginning to do on my own. Then I started a group. Then I had a women's group. Then, and it all just it came to me. I was very lucky, and I can contrast this. I tell you, with a young actress I was in college with, who was fantastically gifted. She was a Puerto Rican um, who was not pretty. And at 27 or 29, she quit and she went into social work because she said she couldn't get anywhere
Mm.
because she was not white and she was not picture book pretty. She's now acting out on the West Coast. She's much younger than I am, but she's say 5, maybe 7 years younger than I, something like that. So with age came parts
Mm.
and theatrical success and so on. But that was an age when theater and movies were far worse than they even are now.
Yeah, yeah, they were
In
very
which
specific about
somebody,
what they were looking for.
yeah, somebody with Puerto Rican background, parents, changed her name. So at least when you read her name, you wouldn't know that she had a Spanish surname.
Mhm.
And when you consider all the bias that people are living with,
Right.
it's a wonder it's a wonder they're able to see themselves on the stage or in the movies when there is so much bias, and bias economically, as you know, lifelong for most people who aren't stars or aren't savvy, so they know how to negotiate and
Very
even. I
wow.
mean, we're not all Oprah. We don't all know how to do that.
But
Uh,
she had to learn these things
she had to
along the
learn.
way. I'm pretty
That's right.
sure she
That's
would
right.
say that she had to learn how to be business savvy. And I've heard her say things like, she had to learn how to be okay with being the only one in the room. and being able to articulate and advocate and do whatever she needs to do. And there's so many women across all different kinds of fields, not just the arts, any kind of industry, where you really have to learn how to stand and be firm and be clear about who you are and not be intimidated by some of the isms that are out there, the biases that are out there, and
Mm.
be willing to recognize that not everybody's going to understand you, not everybody's going to get you, but if you get and understand yourself, that's where it all starts. I truly believe, and I think that in your journey, you say that the improvising, as far as your career as a musician, it came to you. But I also believe, Constance, that things can come to you as long as your heart is open. If your heart is closed off and you're not receptive to what's coming your way, it will go right past you. I just truly do believe that. I believe that you have an open mind, and that has led you to so many wonderful experiences in your life. And particularly, I want you to share with us your opportunity to be a correspondent in the fashion industry. I was so happy for you when you told me about that. And I want you to tell Just Be You After Dark viewers and listeners about that experience.
That was for Vice Media when it still existed, and that was a 3 segment series that had been dreamed up by a producer about putting an old white lady in with youth culture of different colors. So certainly different with age barriers, color barriers of all kinds to see how we bridged
Mm,
gaps.
yeah.
So the first one was a rap singer from, I think, Baltimore. That was the first time I knew from nothing about rap, and I found that people were very generous in acknowledge. They didn't care that I didn't know anything. They said, "Oh, listen to this, listen to that. Here, this you can learn a lot by listening." They were very happy to share, and that was an eye opener for me because I thought people would be really offended at how ignorant I was, but they weren't. They reached out to me.
Hmm.
They made it possible for me, and then they sent me to um, Los Angeles to this modeling convention to model. There was a rehearsal in the afternoon which dealt with technique of modeling. And a lot of it was the training of young models who hadn't yet broken in. They were good looking. They were maybe they'd started out, but they hadn't had much in the way of work. So I was supposed to get integrated with this community, and that worked out just fantastically because I was the oldest person there by a mile. And they didn't care that I came from left field. They cared that I was there
Mm,
and that I was gonna reach out.
yeah.
And that was more important than anything. And I remember on that occasion having a long conversation with he was a makeup artist, and he had spent 6 years in prison.
Mm.
And in that 6 years in prison, he didn't tell us what for. He had watched Vice Media all the time. So when we got there and we said we were from Vice Media, he was ecstatic. And he did everything he could for us. And he stuck with us in the course of this adventure. And then I had an eye opener, which was that I saw how nervous these young people were. They were worried about acceptance. They were worried about doing their job,
Mm.
and they were worried about um, walking it made them nervous. And I realized I could pick up from that. And so I charged into the whole atmosphere. And I had dark glasses that I used in a particular way to like glare at people, and in other words, take an actress's view of the opportunity, and not to try to fit into the lineup. And the designer, the clothing designer, was just delighted because I think she felt I was showing the clothes. I was wearing these loose-legged pants that were fastened on me with chains. And I think she thought that I was reacting to the chains in a particular aggressive way.
Mm-hmm.
She was very, very pleased with it. But then again, I went out on a limb. I wasn't, I didn't run it by her beforehand. So she could have just been horrified. But I felt I was doing the right thing, and that I was in fact showing her off, which was, that's the goal of the model after all, is
True.
to show off the designer.
Yes, it is.
So, if you can just do anything with those clothes, to show them,
Yes.
you're ahead of the game.
Love it. I'm hoping that I'll be able to use some of these experiences and show some clips of some of these experiences so that our viewers can see these wonderful things that you've been able to accomplish in this journey that you experienced in your life. And I personally want to end this interview with you, Constance, by saying I'm wishing you more of all of the joy that you've been able to experience. I'm wishing you, and I'm going to start using this phrase, looking for the beauty. I love that. I love
Oh,
that. I wish you
how
so
nice.
much for beauty. And we're going to end this interview with you doing something that is fun, as also a demonstration of your amazing talent. I want you to just do a reading, do a dramatic reading of anything that you want to choose, because I want this episode of Just You After Dark to be a testament to the fact that it's not too late, that you don't have to worry that you won't be accepted, that you are not the right fit, that you're not the right height, the right weight, the right skin color, the right age. If you're looking for the beauty, the opportunities will come to you. So, Constance, you have the floor to do dramatic reading for us.
All right. I'm thinking as you speak. This is not, how shall I say, this is a beautiful, very short poem in dialogue. It is not a happy piece. But when you're an artist, you are faced with music or art or dance that's tragic. And one of the reasons that we love art, one of the reasons that we need it, is that those people who've created it, those people who are writing books, they're our friends. It doesn't matter, they're dead, many of them, of the authors of the books we read and the music we hear and so on. They're there, and they're our friends nevertheless. And the reason they are our friends is that they are realizing the depths in us that need a response. And by an artist doing his or her absolute finest, they are our friends. They are giving us what we need in life. And so that a book, even a funny book, a terrifically funny book, can give you a deep feeling of passion and warmth and depth because it has reached your gut or your heart. This, in its tiny way, is, I think, in that category. The poem is called Vietnam. It's by a Polish poet named Wisława Szymborska. Szymborska was a Polish poet of the 20th and early 21st century. She didn't often write overt poems about political situations. In fact, she avoided them by and large. But Vietnam. Woman, what's your name? I don't know. How old are you? Where are you from? I don't know. Why did you dig that burrow? I don't know. How long have you been hiding? I don't know. Why did you bite my finger? I don't know. Don't you know we won't hurt you? I don't know. Whose side are you on? I don't know. This is war. You have got to choose. I don't know. Does your village still exist? I don't know. Are those your children? Yes.
Constance, I have enjoyed this interview immensely. I
Thank you,
am
dear.
looking forward to hearing more from you about all of the wonderful things that you're going to be doing. Um, I just want to say to those of you who are watching this episode of Just Be You After Dark, I appreciate your presence. I appreciate you staying to the end of the interview. We got a little deep. You know, sometimes
Yes.
my
Yes.
show is not going to be all about the bells and whistles of entertainment. Sometimes I want to dig a little deeper with my guests and talk about things that you may not always hear. Some of the challenges of the arts industry, some of the challenges that an artist face. And so I want Constance to know that you have been an amazing guest. You've been very inspiring and encouraging. And I'm looking forward to hearing more from you, the wonderful things that you're going to be doing in your career. And before we sign off of our interview, Constance, I want you to look into that camera and I want you to tell everyone in the world who is Constance Cooper.
Well, I'm a composer and an improviser, and late in life, I was able to take advantage of the growing fashion for senior models, and I was able to enter the modeling industry on a part-time basis, with generating a lot of pleasure for myself, a lot of new experiences, and able also to connect it to an acting career. Same thing, part-time, come and go, but new things that came my way in my 70s that I could not have imagined before. Mahogany was one of them. And I hope that we'll be able to continue, stay in contact despite our busy lives. And Mahogany, thank you so much for having me.
Going to work together. There's a production that I'm working on my Christmas musical. I'm going to be speaking with you about that and so many other things that we'll talk about off camera. But I'm going to close out our interview. I want you to know that I appreciate you being a guest on Just Be You After Dark for season 6. I wish you wellness and joy and all the beauty that you can find.
Thank you, my dear. Thank you very, very much. Great pleasure.
Awesome. That was a great Just Be You After Dark, the podcast that motivates you, encourages you, empowers you, entertains you as well, and stimulates you to believe in the possibilities of who you are. Be inspired.